with Well, hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Hope you're all well. Today we are back in the sim, of course, and we're currently on the ground at London Stansted and flying something again different today on the channel. We're in the Flight Factor A320 and today we're in the EasyJet colours. We're in Golf Echo Zulu Oscar Lima, parked on stand 33 at Stansted today, and we're going to be flying EZY8854 service from Stansted to Bergerac, which is in the south of France around the Dordogne. We're going to be flying this aircraft of course today, and our time en route is going to be an hour and 25 minutes. We're going to climb up to 33,000 feet, and the weather itself is a bit interesting today because it's quite windy out of Stansted. The UK seems to be having some bad weather at the moment, so that's something to note. And it's also the same in Bergerac as well. The winds do seem to be switching a little bit, and it does seem quite gusty, so I'm going to have to keep that in mind for when we arrive as well. Like I said, we're obviously on the ground at Stansted, and today we're looking at something a little bit different. We're in the Boundless Simulations London Stansted that was just released yesterday afternoon, and I wanted to make a video on this straight away, and I wasn't able to yesterday unfortunately, but this is why we're in the sim today. And you can see the rendition that Boundless have done is just incredible. We really needed desperately a new London Stansted for X-Plane. We had UK2000 who did their work, and obviously it was a good scenery, but there were a few complications that used to happen with that scenery, and now that we have Boundless bringing us this superb rendition, especially with the ortho scenery as well, that just blends seamlessly with the Orbex True Earth packages, it's really good. Really nice feature to have. So we are of course going to get ready for our flight. We're already connected to most of our ground equipment, as you can see, and we're getting really nice solid frames here. I was worried about what kind of FPS hit we were going to get, especially being in the Flight Factor A320 as well. But the Flight Factor A320 has been receiving some love and updates recently from the Flight Factor development team, and they've guaranteed us now that we should start seeing more stabilized performances, and we won't see as many FPS hits or decreases within our flight. So something to note, and we will try, as we do have ortho scenery for the UK, and I also have some custom made ortho scenery that we'll be using en route down to Bergerac. So that should give us some nice views depending on how the weather clears up. We're going to quickly jump in to the cockpit now, and we are going to quickly start getting ready for our flight. I'm going to turn down the sound a little bit as this aircraft is very loud. And we are pretty much just sat around in the turnaround position, so we can make sure that everything is set the way it needs to be. So we will go ahead and start setting up the aircraft as normal. So we will double check that our weights are good for today as well. So we can go to the fuel progress page and we can request our fuel of 5,800 kilos. Our packs on board today is 136 people, which we can set like that. Of course, the Flight Factor has a bit of a different passenger configuration system. It only thinks that 136 people can come on board, but I think it's actually a bit more than that in real life. It's just due to the configuration of how they've modelled the two together, so something to note. And then our cargo we can set like we normally do, and we're taking 1434, oh, pressed the wrong button there. We're taking 1434 kilos of cargo today, which is in like that. And now we can start setting up the FMC. So we are going from Echo Golf Sierra Sierra Lima Foxtrot Bravo Echo. Taking flight number EZY8854. I believe we can take a cost index around 15 or 20. I think that's what EasyJet use. So we can do that. And our cruise level is flight level 330, as we discussed. Then we go to the next page and we need to, actually, yep, that's correct, we do need to align the IRS, even. And then we will make sure that our zero fuel weights are in, so we can go over to the EFB and just set that in the button there. And there we go, we should be all good now. So what we can do is we'll go to our route page and we'll select our departure. So we're taking runway 22 and we're departing off the Nugra 1 Romeo departure. And we will type in the route quickly now. So what? Yes, it was the Nugbo 1 Romeo, and then we go from Nugbo and then we go Mike 183 to Silver. That will be our first waypoint, and you can see we do have a few altitude constrictions as well. We are flying offline at the moment, so I don't think we really need to worry too much about any altitude constraints. I'm just going to make sure that we're happy there, which we are. So we're going to go Mike 183 to Silver. And then it's Quebec 41 to Cowley. Luckily we don't have too much of the big routing to put in today. And then Tango 71 to Vapid. And then I believe it's November 859 to Drake. And then Lima 151 to Sitet. Uniform November 859 to Ballon. And then Uniform Lima 152 to LMG, Lima Mike Golf. Oh, wrong one. 152, there we go. Lima Mike Golf. And then our last one, which is Alpha 34. And we're just double checking that that is Bugus, so we will take the start from there, which is pretty straightforward into Bergerac. Runway is fairly short, so try not to mess around too much when we arrive. We'll now quickly just do our takeoff performance, so actually use an external program. Well, there's many external programs that you can get, but I actually found a free one online, which is made by, I believe it's by a gentleman called Roland, who made it ages ago, and it's quite handy. It gives you V-speeds for a few of the Airbus variants, A320 being one of them, so you're able to calculate the information through there just depending on some of our factors that we need to address for departure. So for the runway we're taking off is runway 22, and in length of meters that's about 3049, so we can tell the calculator that we have between 3000 and 3200. Airborne elevation will be less than 1000 feet today. The winds, as we discussed, are really heavy right now, especially at Stansted. They are gusting, so it's 260 at 20, gusting 35. I haven't seen weather that bad at Stansted for a little while, so it will be a bit of an interesting departure. So we can say straight away that we have a headwind and it's more than 20 knots. The outside temperature is 9 degrees, a bit cold today in London. and our pressure is lower than 9 at 8 hectopascals. It's 9 at 6 today, so the pressure is pretty low. And the last thing we need is just to find out the takeoff weight, which is correct 59.7 for today. And we can get away with a flap setting of 1. Aircraft anti-ice is not required. There are showers currently, so the runway condition is wet. And now we have our speeds. So we'll go back to here, and we'll have 1/up1 for our departure. We're going to flex to temperature of 65. And our V speeds are 129, 140, and 142 for V2, which is set as such. And then we can go to the wind and request the wind page. That's all in correctly. And there we have it. Just need to set this down to what it should actually be, which is, of course, 996 it should be. There we go. And then we can initiate the boarding like we normally do. Now, there is a sound pack that does come with this that I did put in. You should be able to hear that. Again, I've turned down most of the settings on this aircraft as we're using the BSS sound pack today for the aircraft. It can be extremely loud, so this is why sometimes I just find it better to turn it down, especially when you're in flight, as it can be quite loud when you're in cruise, just listening to that constantly. So we will go ahead and we will turn on our APU. Put on the master start and the seatbelt sign on, and let's start the APU. You can hear straight away the sounds aren't really I think the sounds are starting, but again, I think it's because I've just turned down so many things. If it's on full, you would be able to hear it full, but I don't want to blast your ears off either, so we'll probably put it at an even one, especially considering the actual aircraft, when the engines start, will become much louder, so we do need to take that into consideration as well. But we're pretty much set up for our departure now, so what we can do is we will go ahead and call the pushback truck in a second. Just gonna make sure the APU is on, which it is. Probably turn on our fuel pump, sorry. And we can now select the APU bleed. Now our alternative today is going to be Lima Foxtrot Bravo Delta, which is Bordeaux. Just going to double check that the routing and everything has been loaded the way it needs to be, which it has. Very good. Cool. So we have our V speeds, which is 129 V1, 140 rotate, 142 V2. We have our flex speed 65, or flex temp, sorry, 65, and our flaps is 1 with upward trim of 1, which we will do. Okay, so we're pretty much ready for departure. So we'll pre-plan our pushback. I can see I'm getting a bit of a performance hit just now. I've just noticed it. I was getting it a little bit before as well. Hopefully, as soon as we take off, we should be fine. I find sometimes when it's a bit of bad weather, it doesn't really help.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
we're okay. I think we're all good now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go plugins, and we're going to start the pushback.
Cockpit. Tow is driving up.
We're going to disconnect all of the ground equipment. We're going to close the doors, remove the fuel truck.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board our EasyJet service. Please place your large bags into the overhead locker, wheels first, and keep your small items under the seat in front of you. These include laptops, handbags, duty-free and loose items of clothing. Once you have safely stowed your cabin bag, please take your seat. To help us ensure a prompt departure, we would kindly ask that you keep the aisle clear, enabling all remaining customers to board. As we are currently refueling, please ensure that your seatbelt remains unfastened until the seatbelt sign is turned on. This is a no-smoking service. Thank you for observing this policy.
And there we go. So the announcements are working, which is good.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Okay, so they've disconnected the ground power unit, which is all good there. Everything is closed in the aircraft. Even if we go to the cabin now, it's going to be a little bit iffy with textures because it's trying to load everything in, but you can see the actual rendition of this aircraft is superb. It's one of my favourite ones by Flight Factor out of the bunch that they have produced.
And bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
A lot of people do complain about this aircraft because it doesn't have certain features like being able to hold in a pattern and certain things like that. I think that's actually been added now, but before it never was a feature that was added.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Some people used to complain about certain aspects of it. Unfortunately, Flight Factor lost their original development team on the A320, as they have different teams and groups working on different projects, so they all overlap each other in a way. And Flight Factor unfortunately pulled the short straw on the A320 and they lost their developers, so they were kind of stuck with a superb aircraft which just has so much potential as well. It's already at a level which is so immersive, but if they were to add so many more features to it like the FS Labs A320 has with an AOC system and different things like that, I truly think it would just top off the immersion to complete it really. But we're pushing now, so we're gonna...
Ladies and gentlemen,
turn on
we
the
now
beacon
ask
light.
for your attention while we take you through the safety procedures on this aircraft.
Weather's
A
clearing
safety
up a little
card is
bit.
in your seat pocket, showing the exit routes, oxygen masks, life jackets, and brace position that you must adopt if you hear brace, brace.
So we're gonna start number 2
There
now.
are 2 emergency exits at the rear, 4 in the middle, and 2 at the front of the cabin. Floor lighting will guide you to an exit. Please be aware that your nearest exit may be behind you.
Here we go, engine
In
stopping,
an emergency,
and
leave all cabin
fighting
baggage
against that
on
wind,
board.
and now it's gonna start.
Your seatbelt is fastened, adjusted, and released as shown. It must be fastened when the seatbelt signs are on, and we recommend that you keep it fastened at all times. If the air supply fails, masks will drop from above you. Pull a mask towards you to start the oxygen. Put the mask over your nose and mouth. Hold in place with the strap. Pull on each side to adjust. Put on your own mask before helping others. If we land on water, take the life jacket from under your seat. Put it over your head. Pass the tapes around your waist. Click together and pull the strap to adjust.
Okay.
Do not inflate it
Operation
inside the
complete.
aircraft.
Set parking brake.
When outside,
Parking brake
inflate by
set.
pulling the toggle.
Disconnecting
If it
tow.
fails to
Stand by.
inflate or needs topping up,
Let's start number
blow
1.
into the tube. There is a light and whistle for attracting attention. We also carry flotation aids for children.
So the engine's
Your
doing
tray
the same
table
thing.
must
It's
now
having
be
to fight
stowed,
against the
armrest
winds.
down,
Now it'll stop.
window blinds open, and seatbelt fastened. We wish you a pleasant flight with EasyJet.
Pleasant flight with EasyJet, here we go. I mean, looking at the winds, it doesn't really look as pleasant as they're making it sound, but they don't know that yet. Looking at Bergerac, the winds are 270 at 13, so they have calmed down a little bit, but we are still seeing in the TAF today that it was 260 at 15, gusting 30, so we will keep an eye on that because the weather can change of course, just
So
like
is
that.
disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thank you. Okay, so ground crew are disconnecting the tow. We have a good start on number 2, and number 1 is just stabilising. We can quickly do a rudder, so we'll go aileron full left, full right, full up, full down, full right, full left. And what we'll do is we'll quickly just sort out the sound, because I can hear that it's a bit quiet now. Okay, and we'll go flaps 1. We've armed the speed brake, which is there. Now we can switch this back to normal. We can turn the taxi light on. We can do our standard procedure on the A320. We turn off the APU bleed. We need to wait about 10 seconds before we can actually turn off the actual APU itself. Make sure that that is all set, and it is. Probably turn that on when we get on the runway. 8, 9, 10, that's good. So let's turn off the APU switch. We're clear from the ground crew on the right, and we can release the parking brake. Let's advance the throttle a little bit. Idle. Quick brake test. There you go, brakes are good. Bring the throttle up again now. Jedos277, thanks again for your follow. Really do appreciate that. Hope you're enjoying the stream. If you are new to my channel on Twitch, welcome, of course. I know I'm not really too well known yet. I'm normally streaming and doing videos on YouTube, but I decided to start streaming on both platforms now, as I know that there's obviously lots of you on Twitch as well who enjoy watching some of this content, so it's good to have the possibility to do both. So. Okay, so we're actually gonna go this way for our departure. We're just gonna make a right turn, and then we'll hold Sierra 1. Doing a bit of a fast taxi here. This aircraft really does not need any throttle at all. As soon as you advance the throttle forward a little bit, that is it. It really does just take the throttle like that. As you can see, we're already at Sierra 1, so make our left turn here. Just need to notify the cabin if they're ready for departure, which they should be. Line up the aircraft again, and there we go, we're all good. So follow the center line. We're going to line up runway 22. The cabin, we can tell them they're ready. We can do our takeoff config test, which is good, and we just need to set our trim to up 1. That was the last thing that we needed to do. Let's turn all of our lights on, line up runway 22.
Approaching 22.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, Jedos. I'm trying my best. You should have seen the video the other day. We were flying the A350, and I was actually flying the A350-1000 on that route, and unfortunately the aircraft decided to just do a complete stall on me on final approach. So that was a bit of a shame, but that was unfortunately due to the fact that I forgot to turn off experimental flight model before I did that flight, because I was too busy flying the Beluga. So I probably won't forget that again now when I get into that aircraft. So, and we turned it off for this flight, so it's all good. So the TCAS is on, we have the weather radar on. landing lights are on, and aircraft is looking good for our departure, so let's make our way to Bergerac. Before we go, probably turn a bit of the background music back on, keep that there. Brake released. That's 50%. Chrono. Oh, we overshot it. There we go. Manflex 65 SRS runway auto thrust blue. Power is set. Knots. Really starting to feel the wind already. V1. Rotate. Straight away, feeling that wind. Very normal, positive climb. Gear up. Holding the nose 15 degrees. Want to maintain that 180 knots. 500 passing. Now we are flying the Airbus today, so it is a bit boring. Unfortunately, we can't really fly it ourselves. It's, as you know, I say it's boring in that remark. I still love flying it because it's very smooth how it handles the fly-by-wire and stuff. But from a Boeing perspective, I know some people would think that this is quite boring, but I think it's quite innovative, and Airbus definitely make great aircraft with this technology and how it's stable. So we'll put autopilot 1. Now we can see it's maintained that pitch and that heading for us. We're going to bring back the thrust to thrust climb, passing 3,000 feet. We're about to make our right turn as we depart on the Nobro departure. Flaps 1 plus F is coming in on its own, like it would normally in real life. And now we can select flaps up. We can deselect the speed brake, and let's commence our right turn. I'll take you outside, but I'm going to turn this down outside first, because it will be very loud. Getting some extreme turbulence in that camera angle, so switch it to that. I always get into this aircraft and it's just a joy to fly it wherever we go. Select the Q&H to standard. Actually a nice day today in London after getting out of the winds there. There's Stansted there as we leave. As you can see, we're climbing pretty quickly as well, passing 10,000 feet in a second. Indicate landing lights off. We'll probably set the seatbelt sign to normal as well. The weather doesn't look too bad, and then we'll continue our climb up to 330. Seems like it was just more windy on that departure more than anything. Hopefully, as we climb, we should be alright, but we shall see. We'll make that left turn now. Really sorry about the anti-aliasing, by the way. I have lots of different things running that are trying to keep the sim as smooth as possible. And as you know, anti-aliasing is one of the latter things in X-Plane that don't really come as easy. Especially we're trying to run all the ortho and everything as well. Hopefully as we leave the UK, should become a bit more stable as we climb out, so hoping that is the case. Right now just enjoying those views of the countryside. Again, Warbeck's True Earth, really making a difference for the UK. In fact, it's made so much of a difference, I just can't fly without it now. Can't use the default, as you're missing all of these beautiful views below. So as we continue our climb up, bit of an interesting departure out of Stansted, as it always requires us to go west over Reading and Guildford and places like that, and then we will turn directly south towards Southampton, and then we leave on a heading like that to intercept Sittet and Drake, and then that takes us down the airway that connects us into France. So passing flight level 150 now. 18,000 feet to go. Climbing fairly quickly. It still says that we're on TA only, and I just remembered that that is actually a glitch with the flight factor at the moment. Something that's happened in the latest update, I believe, going through Vulcan, and it's something that they have yet to fix. They are working on it though. I believe that's Luton below us there. Very close, of course. And it looks like we have no real weather as a threat en route today either. Just checking the local conditions as well. Actually, it just updated. We do have some weather around Guildford and Reading, so we'll keep an eye, but I think we're way above that now. I don't think it's anything of a concern at our altitude currently. Feet, so we should pretty much get to cruise just around Vapid, and then we'll start our crossing to Bergerac. Pretty much all we need to worry about for the moment. We are in the flight now. Cabin is all good. We have our lighting on as we do. Probably have some nice views of London as we're departing, as we can see. We do. Getting a bit of a performance hit again, a little bit. I'm wondering if it's just something to do with the Flight Factor A320, as it is a very GPU dependent aircraft. Probably would be CPU dependent as well, but I know that both of them obviously correlate with each other. We'll try and get some more content out in the next few days though. Aiming to try and spread out the locations of where we're filming. We've been doing a lot of stuff in the UK recently. I did a video the day before yesterday where we flew the 737 MAX to Key West from Miami, and again we had some really bad weather on the final approach. Caused us a bit of wind shear, which gave us a bit of a harder landing that we wanted, but we were able to land the 737 MAX into Key West, which was the important part. course, if there's any content that you would like to see, and you have any ideas in mind, something that you think to yourself that you want to see me flying, or where flying specifically in the sim as well, it's always something that you can suggest to me. I'll definitely look at it for a future video, as it would obviously be nice to do content that suits my viewers and what they would like to see as well, so your feedback is very much important to me. So we're going through flight level 250, we feel the aircraft starting to slow down a little bit on its ascent. On the climb out, of course, we currently have a headwind of 54 knots, which is slowing us down a little bit. I feel like we may get a little bump as we make our left turn across Silver. Start working our way out towards the channel. Here we go, making that left turn now. Really disappointed with how this aircraft is handling. I really thought that I would have no issues frame rate wise today. It seems like it's just pushing it to its limit. I know that the Orbex True Earth South can be quite heavy in memory usage, as you can imagine. It's a lot of ortho scenery to load, and I do have ortho scenery for France as well. But normally when I do certain flights like this, it handles quite well, so I'm not sure why we're having too many issues today. Like I said, as soon as we get out towards the channel, we should give the aircraft a bit of breathing room. We should have a bit of a better stability than in flight. I think it's handling fine in flight itself, it's just when I'm moving the cameras I can just feel it's moving a little bit. I hope it's okay for you guys on the stream. Jeros 277, you're interested in seeing failure recoveries, and that could be engine failure, recover, and emergency landings. Okay, well, that is definitely something that we could I could do for a future video, something to practice maybe. I know that some of these aircraft do have built-in failures with them, so we could definitely try and reenact some emergency situations. I would like to do a flight in the 747 very soon. There are two 747s for X-Plane currently. There is the M-Sparks 747, which is the 400, and the Freighter, I believe, the two versions, and that is free. It's a newly developed aircraft which is open source, and we have a lot of different developers who are working on it currently. We also have the SSG 747-8, which is obviously something that was made, I believe, 2 years ago now, but that was the version 1 that came out. I think a lot of the customer feedback was I'll be honest, it was quite intense, I think, for SSG to receive all of that feedback like they did on the 747, and fair play to them. They did obviously rewrite a lot of the code, and they redid a lot of the aircraft to make the 74 what it should actually be. And I believe a new version is coming out really soon. I think it's version 3 point something. I remember seeing it on one of the websites, but I know that this is supposed to be a huge, it's going to make a huge difference to the sim overall, because we're talking about SASL improvements and just actual general flight dynamic improvements and how the aircraft handles. Because the aircraft used to be great to fly, just used to be very FPS dependent, so you would get very low FPS in the cockpit, very high FPS outside, and it just wasn't really great to fly. It just felt like your sim was always struggling, and then they brought out the update which thankfully fixed a lot of things, so that was something that we were all very grateful of. JEDOS 747 is another one you'd love to see, especially all the startup to takeoff procedures. Yes, of course. That is definitely something that I could showcase in one of the next videos. I would actually like to focus on the 747, so maybe that's something I will end up doing. So definitely something to have a look for. Obviously I do plan to do some more YouTube videos as well for my YouTube followers who are watching on the channel. So I am planning to do a few more videos as well. Obviously the ability to just set up and live stream and do a flight whenever I'm able to is also very easy for me to provide you with content, and also that content is stowed on the channel as a future video for anyone who wishes to watch it who may have missed the stream today, so it's quite handy. Of course it's the same with Twitch. I believe you have, I think it's 2 weeks at the moment to access the streams. Eventually, as we go on, if I am able to produce a bit of a following and people are enjoying my content, then it would obviously maybe expand from that and would be accessible for a bit longer. But for the moment I'm pretty happy with the way how both things are set up. And if you are enjoying the content at the moment, I'm glad, because at the end of the day it is for you, so I'm glad you're enjoying it. So 4 nautical miles from Vapid, we're going to make our left turn, and that's going to put us on our heading for the Goodwood VOR, it looks like it. FPS is still slightly sluggish, which is a bit of a shame. In the cockpit it seems fine, it just seems out here it's being really badly affected. Not going to worry about it too much though, we're in the cockpit at the moment, so we're hoping as we leave the UK it should become more stable than normally it is, just due to the amount of stuff that it's trying to load into the sim. Obviously Active Sky as well. So we are 20 nautical miles from Goodwood, and then after Goodwood we should pretty much be on our heading outbound towards the channel. We can already see the coastline now. We have reached cruise. Flight level 330, the aircraft is somewhat fairly stable. To a degree, should we say. I'm just hoping as soon as we leave this coastline we should get a bit better FPS. We were going to fly another aircraft today, but I'm actually going to save that for a video maybe tomorrow. I think we're going to do still a few things that need to be sorted regarding that video, but I think it would be good for another live stream to showcase the aircraft. And again, we will have to follow on with some 747 content as well, because that definitely is another great aircraft to fly. So many carriers who had it, unfortunately, so many carriers who have had to get rid of theirs due to different factors like COVID, unfortunately BA being one of those. Tremendous shame. Those aircraft are full of history, been in our lives for a very long time, have transferred a lot of people around the world. It's just a shame to think that most of them just end up in the scrapyard at the end of the day, after all of their work and commitment they do. That's why flying is a pretty crazy thing, I say. We're about to make our left turn now from Goodwood. You can pretty much see the sea. Our wind seems to be much more stable. As we make our left turn, that should turn into more of a tailwind, I'm guessing. We're at just under 460 ground speed currently, which is exactly where we want it to be. Okay, left turn. I feel like the aircraft is starting to get its FPS back a little bit now. I don't want to jump to the bullet too quick, but it seems like the FPS is starting to become a bit better, which is good. So I was a little bit worried there, because I didn't want just constant stuttering for the entire flight, because normally this aircraft does handle very well. Maybe it was a bad example to fly it in out of London, as it is very condensed and very heavy and populated. So if you were to fly it in somewhere in maybe the Middle East, or if you were to fly it in Asia somewhere, you may not get as bad of a performance hit as if you were to fly it here. So something to note. We are leaving the UK after 21 minutes. So roughly it takes you about 20 minutes on the departure that we took. So leaving the runway to the coast. Now we should have about 40 minutes of en route time. Maybe even a little bit less than that, because we will start our descent about a quarter of the way in, because Bergerac is south, but it's not too far south, it's just underneath Bordeaux, so it's the limit of the south. And we can see we are just over 240 nautical miles from our top of descent, which will go fairly quick by the time we complete our crossing and we get to Sorap. Should be close to almost 160 nautical miles from top of descent, and then we can start setting up for our arrival. And then the arrival is pretty simple. I know you can't really see it right now, but we will pretty much just continue on our last waypoint, and then that will direct us into the Bergerac VOR. And then we will land 27, and that's it, we'll be on the ground. I'm hoping the winds do play ball a little bit and they cooperate. Winds at 270 at 13 currently. It's overcast at 900 feet. The temperature is 12 degrees, the dew point is 12, so it means that it's probably going to be very foggy conditions. So this will be a fairly interesting arrival. And it says that it is becoming broken at 2,000 feet, but the winds are also becoming temporarily 260 at 15, gusting 30. So something we will note, because the runway isn't too long in Bergerac. Looking at the information on the sheet, it says that the runway itself is 7,200 feet, 2,200 meters. So we don't really have too much room to maneuver. It's kind of a get her down scenario. But again, we should be able to do this alright. FPS is starting to come back much better now. There we go. Starting to get a bit of a better performance. Although for some reason today, whenever I'm in the cabin, I'm getting a bit more of a performance hit. Maybe it's just because it's trying to load everything. as I was trying to say, I'm not sure if EasyJet specifically do Stansted to Bergerac, because I remember it was something that was done on a seasonal route, same as Ryanair, because I know Ryanair normally do it, and I was going to do it with Ryanair, but I thought it would be fun just to showcase something different, so that's why we decided to do the A320. But EasyJet do this service as well from Liverpool, so I know that there is 2 potential routes that EasyJet do to Bergerac. And we're also using a scenery by A Sky Story today for Bergerac, which is a great scenery. I know, I swear on every single video I say this is a great scenery, this is an amazing scenery, but the truth is, it is. 9 times out of 10 when you see a scenery being made for P3D, you're kind of excited to see how it's going to be made in X-Plane if it's being converted over. I felt like that was a lot of the time, it was basically like that with very high-end sceneries that were being made. For example, Flight Factor Las Vegas was released for P3D, and everybody saw the potential that it had and how much detail Flight Factor put into it. But just knowing at the back of your head that they were going to make it for X-Plane as well, and knowing sometimes what developers do to provide that level of immersion within the sim, it's truly did make an amazing difference. Just looking at the detail that they have provided into the entire strip, into all of the hotels, the water fountains being animated, the actual billboards of the live advertisements of shows and different things like that, just that kind of immersion. I mean, I know most people are thinking, why would you need that? This is a flight simulator. I mean, yes, I understand your point, but from an immersive standpoint, for when you're on final approach and you're landing in Vegas and you see the entire strip on your left, I think that really does provide a nice quality to your simulator, especially if you can run it as well. Okay, so continuing our right turn, and we're pretty much lined up all the way now. It's not long at all until we get to our top of descent. We'll probably be there in the next 15 minutes or so, maybe a bit longer, but the winds are still fairly strong coming from the right hand side of the aircraft. We've got quite a strong crosswind. Ground speed is 453 knots, so we're fairly stable in that matter. Aircraft just making a few corrections, of course, just to keep us en route. I think we're just about to pass Sitet as well, so we'll go direct to Etrat. What a nice day it is though in the sim, and I presume it is a nice day. And I hope it is a nice day wherever my viewers are watching from today. I hope you're all having a good day. It's fairly cloudy now over France. I think that should clear up a little bit as we get closer to Bergerac. So 28 minutes have passed, so almost half an hour in flight, and we're doing pretty well. We've already made it the other side to France. And you can actually see that our arrival has showed up now. You can see the airport and the final waypoint just there. And I believe the star is pretty simple. It just connects us to runway 27, nothing major, don't have to do any spins or whirls. Just bring us straight into runway 27. And I think we have the choice to either do an RNAV or an ILS arrival. I think we just are going to do a bog standard ILS 27 today. The for anybody who doesn't know, I may take you through a few things on the aircraft, because again, I feel like I just sit here and I just talk about things, but obviously this is the overhead of the A320. Now each A320 that's been modelled for a flight sim comes in all different shapes and forms. I think it's quite likeable, the overhead panel. It has kind of like a retro kind of old style feel to it as well, as I believe Flight Factor did get some of their performance data of the actual team regarding some of the older A320s, but I believe that was also updated to reflect some of the newer A320s that were being made as well. But you can see that you have most of your stuff on the top. We even have a refueling panel here. I didn't do it today, but if you wanted to when you land, you can just select the power button, CTL, and you can actually increase or decrease how much fuel you would like, and when you press CTL it will basically load the fuel into the aircraft like it would in real time on the Zebo, for instance, when you request a fuel truck. So that's pretty handy. I haven't actually tried out any engine fires or anything like that, but I know that all the systems are modelled from what I believe. And of course the actual FMC itself is really, really good. There's a few things actually in here that weren't even in the FS Labs before, such as, for example, when you click IRS in it and it says align on ref. They didn't actually have that before in the FS Labs, from what I've been told. So I know that obviously there are a few things that Flight Factor have, and there's a few things that FS Labs have over Flight Factor. But I feel like when we come to the immersiveness of an aircraft and how it's supposed to fly like an Airbus, I do feel like Flight Factor win in that regard, or they just peak it for the moment. I know that Flight Sim Labs obviously have a lot of exterior coding and different programs running outside of the sim to make sure that the flight model is as realistic as possible. Fortunately, there are some times where your FPS can be quite badly affected on P3D, and it does obviously cause issues with certain aircraft. Used to have that on the Aerosoft back in the day. But overall, for what she does offer, she is a very nice aircraft. And you obviously have your tablet here, your iPad, and you have all your features and stuff here. So you have your ground power unit, air starter unit, your chocks, and then obviously you can select all your stuff relating your fuel in here as well, so it doesn't have to just be on the overhead, it can be here as well. And then passengers, of course, cargo, as you know. Then the perf data, this would pretty much just be set the way it needs to be set regarding your data here. So as soon as you press set, it will actually tell the aircraft in the initial page here what your actual zero fuel weight and center of gravity is. So that's very handy if you're trying to set up and you're rushing around and you're thinking, where do I get the information from? No, you just press set and you'll be good to go. It even does give you some trim POS and different things like that, which you can obviously use, but again, I prefer to use my program, or the program I found, sorry, TPC, which is very handy. You obviously have a browser as well. You're able just to go into the browser and just type anything you want. You can type in google.com, and there you go. Shows you everything that you need to see. You can access anything. You can go on YouTube, you can pretty much watch videos in flight. It's quite handy. If you even need to use charts, if you want to use Navigraph or something like that, you can just load Navigraph charts straight into the tablet and you can access them en route. So very handy if you're needing to see where you're going. Then you have the failures section here, which is where you can actually load scenarios. So this is what I was talking about, the fire system. So you can actually create available scenarios and then load them into the aircraft, and then when you do a flight they could just occur at any moment. It just depends on the luck of the draw, really, in that regard. Then on the settings page here you have obviously your axis input, interaction type, your protected clicks, gives you information for virtual reality, gives you a background, data refs, tooltips, even gives you an option for the panel quality, the IRS alignment speed, and even panel hotkeys. So you have a lot of different things that will obviously help during your flight. The Google API key is actually something for here, for the map page. If you type in your Google API key, it will actually give you Google Maps. I did try it once, but I must have not done something correctly, because it worked for about 2 seconds and then it just stopped. So maybe I did something wrong, but I know that's what this page is specifically for. Then you have the FAT page, of course, which is the I don't know what it stands for. Maybe it's Flight Attendant Purser System. I'm not sure what it is. But obviously you have your cabin lighting on this page. You have your audio there, so it shows all the different levels. You have your doors. It'll show you all the doors. The temperatures in the cabin. It will show you your water and waste. So when you're in a long flight, all those levels will obviously change. They'll decrease and increase respectively during the flight, which is quite a cool, nifty little feature to have. I know some people use a program which is called self-loading cargo, which kind of replicates a similar system to what we have here. It's a bit more immersive and focuses more on the passenger itself directly, but the actual system itself kind of correlates a little bit similar with what Flight Factor have done with the FAP page, so something kind of cool. Something cool that's built in with the aircraft itself. Very nice to have. Very nice feature. Okay, so we are making our way. We are about 160 nautical miles from Ballon, so we're doing pretty well. And the weather, or the wind, sorry, is getting even stronger. We've got 101 knots now on the crosswind, so our ground speed is really becoming affected. But we are going to make a left turn in a second, which should again counteract that wind a little bit as we continue onwards. According to our route, we have about 35 minutes to go until we're on the ground. Also been some new previews this week of Flight Factor. They've been previewing their new 787. That's obviously been in the works recently. And I'm a bit on the fence when it comes to the Flight Factor 787, because I think it does look very well done, like for a first shot that they released in sim of the actual cockpit and its overall impression. It did look very well designed, compared to obviously what we've had to deal with Magnite. Obviously two completely different companies. Magnite are much younger in that regard. They have teams who are still in university and college, so they have a lot of education and stuff wrapped around their finger, so the 787 itself isn't their main responsibility. That's why development has been a bit slower for it, although there have been some development updates earlier in the year, last year, sorry, that were improving certain aspects of the cockpit, the design, adding some new features to the EFB itself, as they now have their own custom EFB. And I think the biggest issue that we have with that aircraft is that it's still using the default FMC and the navigation display, so it doesn't really look as accurate as it could be. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, I'm quite thankful that we have a custom FMC from X-Plane that allows us to utilize these planes that aren't fully finished yet, and they do allow them to become flyable to a level. But I do hope that Magnite will continue improving on that very soon. I feel like if Magnite do end up bringing out the custom FMC, and they do end up bringing out some overall flight dynamic fixes and different things like that to the aircraft. It will probably be on par with the 787 from Flight Factor. Flight Factor are always trying to up their game, and in their last post before they released the 787, they even said to their customers, you know, they understand where they went wrong before, and they obviously need to focus on the right direction to get themselves to where they need to be, like they said. So they're trying now to bring out more immersive aircraft, I presume, and just trying to fill that void in the community that needs to be filled. And I know that Indie Builds are obviously doing a great job at that as well. Obviously been flying a few of their aircraft recently. They have an A300 which is in the works, which will probably come out next month. And then I presume next month, or maybe the month after, we'll probably have a development update on the Indie Builds A380. And that will be the aircraft that everyone will be so desperate to get their hands on. Obviously Fly-by-Wire Simulations, who are a freeware team working on the A320 Neo from Microsoft Flight Simulator. They obviously started making a development update on that aircraft like Zebo did to the default 7.3 for X-Plane, and they then decided to announce that they're working on an A380 as well that they're modelling. It'll be interesting to see what both developers bring out at the end of the day. Obviously Indie Builds have brought out 2 aircraft already, and not going to lie, they're probably 2 of the best rendered aircraft and simulated aircraft at the moment out there, just when it comes to immersion and in-depthness of the aircraft as well. So I think that kind of gives you an idea as to what Indie Builds are going to do with the A380. They haven't rushed anything, they haven't released anything yet, which I like as well, because they will release it when they're ready and they're happy with what they're doing. And in fact, I think they were even making the A380, they were halfway through doing the development for it, and they just weren't happy with certain aspects of it, so they decided to redo the whole aircraft from scratch. And I presume that's why it's taking a bit longer, is because they're just making sure that every part of the aircraft is explored to the maximum detail possible. So as they're about halfway now, checking our overlay, it seems like the red bar says we're halfway, just about. Ground speed has come back up a little bit, but not that much. We're still getting really, really bad winds, and I presume it's as we get further down. We have the Bay of Biscay, which has some horrible winds at certain times of the year. It can be very, very turbulent, especially for cruise ships. If you're going on a cruise and you're crossing through the Bay of Biscay, it can be treacherous at times. So we're about to make a left turn in a second, and that will take us to Van Nant. And after that we can start setting up for our arrival, because we really do not have too long to go. We have not reached the ortho scenery yet. I decided not to load in too much ortho scenery. I wanted to get it a little bit lower, like towards Bergerac, because as you can see, it does have a little bit of an effect with this plane, I found anyway, so hopefully that won't be a factor for future videos. But so we should start our left turn momentarily. It's making its mind up about it. Unless we've already made the left turn and it was that short. Oh goodness, we have, okay. That was very interesting, didn't even feel the aircraft turn at all then. probably just due to the amount of wind that we have, which is just causing us. So we are going to set up our arrival now. So let's go to the FMC, let's go to the arrival page, and we're going to be doing an ILS 27. And according to our routing today, we're just going to take the Bugger 6 Romeo, and we're not going to take it via Est or Sud, we're just going to go directly in. So if we do insert and then we take it to the flight plan page, so it wants us to go direct to the Bergerac VOR and then come back round for the intersection runway 27. So what we could probably do, just for the purpose of this video, we could probably just cut out Bergerac. I mean, if we had ATC online, they would probably vector us. But I think it would be much easier if we just took out the Bergerac VOR and we just went direct to the ILS for runway 27, as that's going to make us come around. So if we were to delete Bravo Golf Charlie, we just update that and we press insert, it's going to give us a bit of a better arrival sequence. So 2,500 it would like us to be at for the final waveform. You can tell we're really suffering with the crosswind now, even trying to keep it straight, hence why we didn't really make too much of a turn back there. We're 80 nautical miles from top of descent, and set our auto brake to medium. And we can go in and set our approach page up as well. It looks like it's just started to rain in Bergerac. The winds are still 270 at 11. It's 12 degrees on the ground, a bit warmer. I put that in the Q&H box. 12 degrees, there we go, 1019 on the Q&H. And we can probably set a decision height of around 340, we'll set it around. And there we go. So we are all set up for our arrival. The wind is just getting worse and worse as we get further down south. I presume this will probably be one of the longest parts of the flight due to the fact that we're being slowed down much more by that wind, unfortunately. But overall, we're alright still at cruise. And that top of descent should come fairly quickly now, to make sure that our wind data is also put in for our arrival. We can update and insert that. Something that this aircraft definitely does miss, and something that the FS Labs obviously has, is the ability to receive PDCs, pre-departure clearances, and also to do the CPDLC, which is the Communication Pilot Data Link Computer. And those two features alone are obviously very cool to have in the aircraft. And I believe that most airliners do normally use CPDLC now when it comes to the world of flying, and I think only in certain FIRs and certain areas of the world they use it, but it is something that is used to transmit and relay messages to aircraft without speaking to them on voice, which can be quite handy if you're in a very busy airspace. If you're in London Control, you can just say hello, it's EZY8854 with you, passing flight level 160, and then you can obviously initiate your CPDLC, and then the CPDLC would then be connected to that air traffic controller, and he would be able to relay any messages to you that he needs, so to tell you to climb, to turn left, turn right, so you would just accept that or reject it through the FMC like they would in real life. And it just makes it much easier for the pilot as well, without having to listen out constantly of the hundreds of pilots who may be on frequency. I believe they do normally monitor voice as well, they're on the same frequency, but if it's not needed, and 9 times out of 10 it isn't, they will just normally speak on the CPDLC system. And of course the other side of that would be the AOC system, which would be the Airline Operations Center. And each airline would be able to transmit and of course relay messages to that aircraft about their routing, about their flight that they're taking, with their perf equipment. And this is what FS Labs obviously provides, the ability for you to relay all of that information back to the airline, so to speak, that you're flying. There's a lot of cool things that they've added, and I know that if those kind of cool features were added to an aircraft like this, it would definitely bring it onto the same range, I would say. Because truthfully, that's all it misses, the Flight Factor A320, is just those kind of immersive tools within the aircraft to make it that much more enjoyable. So we are approaching our top of descent now. We're very close, about 40 nautical miles to go. Not long at all. And we will be on the ground very soon as well. We'll probably be about 120 DME away from the actual airport itself, 120 nautical miles, so when we get to top of descent we should have a pretty smooth descent all the way down. Just going to keep an eye on the winds, shouldn't be a factor. I mean, the winds are already slowing us down now, so on our descent it shouldn't really be too much of an issue. There are actually 2 runways at Bergerac. One of them is the main one, the concrete runway, 27 and 09. And then you also have 27 left and 09 right, of course, which is it's basically like an unpaved runway. It's like a grass runway that they use for, I think it's like Cessnas and different things like that. Because I do know they do have some, obviously, general aviation traffic going into a lot of these airports. And then you have your standard EasyJet and Ryanair coming in to pay a visit as well, just parking next to that Piper Cherokee. So 5 nautical miles from Sophill, and then we're on our last waypoint before we start our descent, and we will start our descent before we reach that waypoint. Okay, so we can probably start winding this down a little bit. You can see we're now 30 nautical miles, so we'll probably start our descent in 20 nautical miles. That's what I like to do on the Airbus. A lot of people, including me, up until a point, used to just wind down the altitude to what you needed it to be, and you would just click it in on a managed descent. And some people used to wait until they would reach the white arrow. The problem is the aircraft is then having to descend really fast to try and keep up with the VNAV profile of the aircraft. So if you start your descent 10 nautical miles before, it gives the aircraft a starting run, obviously, and it will gradually descend at about 1,000 feet per minute, and then it kind of allows the VNAV profile to catch up to the aircraft, and then when the VNAV profile is the same as the aircraft can then gradually start its descent further to match the VNAV profile. So very handy to note, especially when flying this aircraft for sure, because it definitely likes to descend. Here we go, so we're approaching 20 nautical miles until top of descent. So it's been less than an hour we've been in the air. We've made really good time considering this flight is almost an hour and a half. So maybe on the ground even before that. So just before we start our descent, we're just going to quickly check that everything is good. It's telling us to enter our destination data. We already did that, but I just remembered that we requested our winds again for descent, so that would have actually kicked out the winds for the arrival. So we can just double check, which is good, and it is still 270 at 11, so it is a direct headwind we're landing into today. That probably will be a interesting factor. Almost 10 DME from Ballon, approaching 10 nautical miles from top of descent. Just had a quick glimpse at the ortho there below. Okay, so let's start our descent. Let's wind down our altitude to 2,500 feet, as that is our only restriction that we have really. Here we go, 56, 38, starting descent. Now you can see that we're starting our descent, and this green little dot here is the VNAV profile. Now obviously we started our descent before the top of descent itself, so the aircraft brings its speed down to the descent tape that it requires, and then it kind of manages between minus 800 and 1,000 feet per minute. And we're still continuing in to Ballon. And I think the aircraft knows that we're getting affected by the wind today, so it has slowly started its descent. It hasn't jumped straight to 1,000 feet yet. Okay, so the speed is stable. Passing 32,000 feet, making our left turn so we can line ourselves up with the Limoges waypoint. And you can see the VNAV profile is slowly starting to catch up now with our descent rate because it's quite slow. And this way the aircraft will descend in sync with the VNAV profile. So as it does become level, the thrust will idle as it should, and now what it will do is it will descend the nose with the VNAV profile to maintain that speed. And there we go. Now we're perfectly on the VNAV descent on the profile. And now we can descend to Bergerac. So, passing flight level 300, taking the descent nice and easy, as we don't need to descend too quickly, as we just have so much wind just slowing us down already that it's kind of pushing us away a little bit. So the aircraft is pretty happy descending at the rate that it is. We have about 80 nautical miles until we're at the runway, so maybe a bit more. You can see the wind is starting to come down a little bit now as we gradually descend lower and lower, so that would also be a factor to include on our descent, and probably will update as we get a bit lower. You can see that the speed tape is struggling a little bit. I was explaining about that yesterday on the MAX and on the 737 in general, how when the throttle itself goes into a hold position where the throttle will idle, and it will depend on its descent speed to stay at that descent speed while descending you to the altitude you require. And obviously if you were to go under that speed, the auto throttle system would pick up that after a certain amount of knots lost, and then it would increase your throttle again to maintain that descent speed. Same with if you go over your speed, it would just probably raise the nose a little bit just to bring the descent down, or you'd probably have to use speed brake to help with that. But what most people don't know is that your throttle is actually manageable in that position, so you're actually able to move the throttle when it's in the hold position, and you're essentially able to move the throttle to where it needs to be to maintain that speed for that descent. Because if you can keep that perfect descent speed, it means you're going to have a perfect descent on the profile. Whereas now we're very low, we're supposed to be maintaining about 270 knots for our descent. And right now we're doing almost 250, so you can see the same thing is happening now. The throttle will now increase, and that will gradually bring that speed back up to 270, so we can maintain that correct descent at the correct speed. Because effectively right now, if we were just to continue descending, we would be too slow, according to the VNAV profile anyway, even though it says we're spot on. So let's see how this manages. About 60 nautical miles from Buggers, and then after that we just have a few waypoints in front of us. But that will pretty much be our arrival into Bergerac then. So the wind is coming down now. Seems like the wind is coming down a lot. We just lost about 5 knots of wind there, passing through flight level 235. So it seems to be a huge jet stream around France and the UK, which is probably coming in from the Atlantic, which would make sense. It does happen at this time of year. Being honest, it happens at all times of years. It's all very random. So about 70 nautical miles, I presume, will be on the ground in the next 10 minutes or so. Passing almost flight level 220. So we are just passing over Limoges. And I think we've got Périgueux, which is one of the other runways, or one of the other airports, sorry, Lima Foxtrot Bravo X-Ray, which is just to our right of Bergerac. Performance-wise, we're much better than what we were earlier. So we're descending through flight level 190, 9,000 feet until we go through 100, and then we'll start our decel again. The wind's still very much in force, still getting an 82 knot headwind at flight level 185, which is pretty insane. Normally you wouldn't get these type of winds. You'd only get them around places like Japan or somewhere. I mean, obviously they can occur anywhere, but they're much more common, these kind of jet streams, in places like Japan, where you'll fly from maybe Beijing or Incheon to Narita or Haneda, and the flight time would be something crazy, like an hour, maybe, just topping it, maybe an hour and 10 minutes from Beijing, just due to the tailwind just providing so much speed. But then obviously the return would be almost 3 hours back, just because of the extent of the wind that's caused, really. Very helpful as well if you want to do Pacific crossings, if you want to do oceanic crossings. That's obviously very helpful for you when you're traveling at almost 700 ground speed over the Pacific. It's pretty impressive to get the aircraft from one side to the States, the other side, in less than 10 hours. It's pretty impressive. And I guess it works the same with when BA used to send their 747s and their 777s from New York to Heathrow, and we had a very good jet stream like today, and you would see the aircraft arrive in Heathrow in 5.5 hours, something ridiculous like that. It's just nuts. So continuing our descent, about to pass flight level 160. The aircraft is still very much slow on its descent. and I presume that's just because of the winds more than anything. We actually got here fairly quickly, and we're wasting a lot of time now just on the descent due to how strong the winds are. Not to worry. Not that far to go, about 30 DME until we arrive at Burgos, and then probably about 10 nautical miles, 10-15 nautical miles for us to complete our manoeuvre and line up with the runway. We probably want to be configured fairly quickly as well on this arrival. So it said our ETA was now 1 minute away, and that's now updated again for another 10 minutes. So it just shows you how much havoc the winds are playing with us, but they should start to decrease a lot through flight level 100, I'm hoping. Our top of descent reaching marker is just in front of Burgos, so we're expected to reach 2,500 feet just before we make our turn. Probably around there we'll start to decrease our speed, if the wind hasn't already done it for us. And then yeah, we'll continue our turn inbound to runway 27. Very low visibility at the moment. There's honestly nothing that we can see, just a lot of cloud. Hopefully we should break through that in a minute. We have broken clouds at 2,000 feet, broken clouds 3,300 feet, 1,800 feet, 900 feet. There's a lot of broken clouds. So, and it doesn't help that the temperature is 12 degrees and the dew point is 12 degrees, because it probably means that it is foggy conditions due to the fact that the temperature and the dew point are the same. So it's very likely that it will be lower visibility into Bergerac, even though it says that it isn't. It says that it's clear, but we're gonna see that when we come into land, see for ourselves what we're presented with. We're just approaching flight level 110, so 1,000 to go, and then we will properly start our decel. At the moment the aircraft is struggling just even to maintain 250 knots. But in that regard we won't really need to slow down too much. So speed has dropped now, and it's back in its bar at 10,000 feet. We can now turn the landing lights on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will shortly be landing. Please ensure your cabin bag is safely stowed with your laptop inside. Your tray table must be stowed, armrest down, and window blind open. You now need to be seated with your seatbelt fastened, ready for landing. Please help us by handing in any rubbish, newspapers, or magazines that you do not want to take with you. The toilets are no longer in service.
And there we go. Still getting a little bit of lag. wondering if it was due to, no, some issues that we're having with some of our settings, but we will. So passing 9,000 feet, landing lights are on, seatbelts are on. We can probably set our QNH because we already know what it is. It's 1019. It was 909.6 when we left Stansted, so the pressure much higher here in Bergerac. Speed is still trying to keep up there. It's obviously trying to keep us on the profile as well. Seems like it is struggling a little bit just because of that wind that we're still getting 42 knots at 8,000 feet, so I presume this is going to be a bit of an interesting arrival, but let's see how it plans out. I'm just passing over the Bergerac waypoint, which means that the airport is just here to our right, and then we'll continue through Bogus, and that's where we'll join the ILS there. And here comes the rain. I'm starting to go through the actual cloud layer now. Speed is stabilizing a bit more now. The winds are very much not making up their mind, but I think this is what we're actually going to be presented with now, all the way down to 2,500 feet, because it did say that it was gusting, so we will probably keep that in mind as a factor. Okay, right turn. Okay, we can see the ortho scenery loading below us, just making that final turn so we can line up for runway 27. Wind seems to be pushing us now towards being a bit of a headwind, but we're going to keep an eye on that as we continue our descent. We can probably tell the cabin in a second to be ready for landing when we start our approach phase. Turn the landing scope, you can see 20 DME away from the actual runway itself. Still very low visibility. I think we've got broken clouds until 2,100 feet. Starting to rain a little bit now as well. Actual wind factor is not too bad. Not feeling any gusts or anything like that on the aircraft at the moment, so it's all good. Hope you're all enjoying the stream though, guys. It's been quite a nice flight so far. Had some good views, and fortunately we were going to have some nice views of France below us, but we do have this really low cloud layer today, which is a bit of a shame, but we should see it now as we start to break through in just a few minutes. So 3,500 feet, there we go, we have the river there. we could probably bring our speed out now, and we can probably select it as managed. And we're just going to want to start slowing down in just a few seconds. You can see that the ortho has loaded, very nice. Okay, we're now approaching 2,500 feet. And we're about 12 DME from the runway, so if we wanted to, we can now bring... checked. So we can now bring our speed down to 190 knots. Still 4 DME away. We're probably just wanting to keep as much speed as possible, just for our descent. It really is bad today in Bergerac. Okay, we're about to make our left turn, so we can turn on the localizer and we'll select flaps 1. And watch our throttle come into play in a second. And there we go, the glide slope is alive. Let's bring our speed down to 180 knots. And hopefully we should be able to get a dual diamond sync on the glide slope, so localizer should hit. And as we start getting closer to the runway, our glide slope should hit as well, so we can now activate the approach. We're now 8 DME, so we can probably bring this down to 170. And as soon as we have the descent achieved, we'll select flaps 2, which we're about to do. We just got the localizer, we're about to get the glide slope, there we go. And now we'll select flaps 2. There we go. Bit of a rubbish day for weather, but we're okay, we're still on our descent, still 6 DME, so we can probably bring speed down to 150. We'll tell the cabin that they're ready, which they are. We can arm our speed brake. Runway is in sight. 5 DME, let's go gear down. Flaps 3. We're going to bring that down to our final landing speed, and we'll now select flaps full. And this is our final cloud as we brake out of 900 feet. There we go. 1,200 actually we're at still, so our last broken cloud, yes, that is correct, so it is at 900 feet. And we are good for landing. Landing gear is down, signs are on, cabin is ready, spoilers are armed, flaps are full, and we're landing no blue, all good. $1,000 checked. I will disconnect the autopilot in a second, I just won't do it now when we're in 0 visibility, because that just won't be a very clever thing to do. The aircraft is pretty stable at the moment. I believe it's broken at 900 feet, which is 900 feet base. There we go. Autopilot disconnected. best view
approaching 272,500 feet. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 72. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500.
I'm sorry about this, guys. I don't know why
272,500. Available. Approaching 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 272.
Well, thank you, RAAS. You completely screwed me up on final there, and I'm not sure why you did that. Never in all of my experiences of flying this aircraft have we
available. Approaching
ever had that. So she still won't shut up.
272,500.
Shut up.
Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500.
You know what? I'm just going to get off the runway.
Available.
So
approaching 272,500. Available. Caution. Short runway. Short runway. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 272,500. Available. Approaching 2.
Right, we're not on 27 anymore, so please just stop going on. God, what a disappointment. It's always something that has to screw us over, and today it is the RAAS. It's really annoying as well because it's not even an option, like you can actually choose whether you want the RAAS installed. It just comes with the aircraft, and it's just annoying that it's in a Siri voice as well. And I bet you she's still going on.
500 available. Approaching 272,500 available. 5,000 remaining. 3,000 remaining. 2,000 remaining.
Finally she has stopped. My goodness, I really don't know. I'm really sorry about that, guys. That probably completely screwed everything up for the arrival there, and obviously wasn't really fun to hear during the whole of that arrival. It was a bit of a bumpier landing. Unfortunately, here they tend to, again, get it down more than kiss it to the ground. But no, we have arrived in Bergerac, so we will go ahead and taxi to the gate, which is just across over here. This is normally the general aviation stand where they have all of their other aircraft and stuff like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the cabin crew will shortly be leaving their seats to perform safety-related duties. However, we ask that you remain seated until the fasten seatbelt sign has been switched off. Portable electronic device internet access may now be used.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and park on the right.
All your personal belongings with you.
We have the French
flag in the seat pocket, underneath the seat, and in the
being blown in the wind.
Do take care when opening the lockers in case anything falls out.
I'm still really annoyed that the RAAS absolutely screwed us over on that arrival there.
On behalf of the captain and the crew,
honestly,
it's been our pleasure looking after you today.
Always something.
Our ground crew will help you complete your EasyJet.
That is the way, though, of the simming world.
News, promotions, flight and destination information, check out our official Facebook page, Twitter, or EasyJet app.
And I also forgot that they have this very interesting parking system as well. So park number 2, and probably would be better with a marshaller, but I'm going to try and do it just from the cockpit. We may actually use a bit of this stand here. Sorry, anyone who's parked there, but see if we can make our right turn there. Turn the aircraft around. Doesn't really give you too much space to maneuver, unfortunately. That's probably a bit off. We're not really too fussed. We can correct that ourselves. Ooh, and that slimed a little bit to the right there, or to the left, sorry. There we go. We can park her there. Very nice. I'm not sure if I shut off the clock. So it was 1 hour and 25, which is good. And it was 1 hour and 35 gate to gate. So, turn at the service, turn the ground power unit on, connect the external power, turn the taxi light off. Actually, before we do that, just quickly, because normally what I do is I show the landing back on the replay, and I'm sure you would love to see what went wrong there. I promise you, we're not going to watch it from this view. We'll watch it from the tower itself, which has decided to put me inside a building. So we'll probably just bring ourselves up there, bring the aircraft a bit closer to our landing. Let's see how that actually looked from outside. Wasn't too bad. It didn't actually look as hard as I thought. It's just because I pitched up right at the last moment just to cut the flare, or just to cut the descent, sorry, as much as it was coming onto us there. So not too bad. I think sometimes the landing rate monitor can sometimes be a bit out of accuracy. I've sometimes done a flight where I've literally had a similar situation like this, where you've pulled up at the last moment and you've kind of I'm trying to find the word to explain this. You've kind of like reflected or deflected all of your descent rate onto the nose as you flare, so you kind of cut the descent, and it makes it just like a perfect landing. So then again, you have the landing rate monitor, which will say you just did a minus 300 feet per minute landing, but then you check Project Fly or Volanta or whatever you use, and the landing rate is something like -1 or something like that. So something I've noticed, but overall was not too bad. Obviously we did just have an issue again with the RAAS, I'm sorry about that. And that was a very enjoyable flight, and obviously the Stansted Scenery is just superb as well. Thought it was nicer if we flew out of it today. I do aim to do another live stream either tomorrow or the next day, where we'll be flying out of Stansted again. We'll probably be flying Ryanair next time, and have something very nice to showcase in that video. So if you are here now or you have watched the video, I definitely do recommend you stay tuned for that when that does come out. You can probably toggle the replay mode off now, make sure that the parking brake is set, and it is. Select the ground power unit, external power, and we'll shut number 1 and shut number 2. Engine shutdown. You can turn the beacon light off. And there we go. Bad boys are running down. We can turn off the seatbelt signs. We can turn off the fuel pumps. And we will open the doors, of course. And we'll open that. We can even open the door, why not? Stopped raining, which is good. Obviously this aircraft doesn't let us actually walk out of the aircraft, I'm afraid, but oh, it is still raining, but it doesn't look like it's raining. And there we have it. We have arrived in Bergerac, in the Dordogne. It's a bit of a cloudy day, but not bad at all. It was a very nice flight. And overall the sceneries that we saw today were very nicely done. I'm really happy with what Boundless have obviously created. They already did Shannon before, and a lot of people saw the kind of work that they were doing with that, and when they announced Stansted, I think a lot of people just got extremely excited, as it's something that we've been missing for a while, and now it allows us to have so many EasyJet and Ryanair and a lot of freighter opportunities as well, so definitely something that can be used now. well, that is it for today, everyone. Thank you again for watching the video. I do appreciate it if you stayed to the end, and for all of the people who did watch, and to my new followers, thank you again for your follow. I do appreciate that. I will be streaming again very soon, and I should get some more video content up on YouTube very soon as well when I get round to it. But that is it for today. I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and if you have any questions or anything you want to see, don't forget to leave me a message and I will definitely get back to you on that one. But for now, guys, you have a great afternoon, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.